It's time for the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild review for the Nintendo Switch. Isn't that opening just beautiful? I'm not just talking about graphics. I've played through this game 3 times now, and every time I get to this spot, I honestly get a small dose of butterflies in my stomach because I know I'm in for a wild adventure. I'm assuming most of you who are watching this have played some sort of past Zelda game. No, these don't count. My point is, even if you've only played one Zelda title, you should have at least a basic understanding of the game's formula. Well, you can throw that out of the window, because this game takes a whole new direction. In most Zelda games, you must follow a specific gameplay path, meaning in order to advance, you're forced to complete certain scenarios in a preset order. There's very little, if not zero, freedom to change up how and or when the game progresses in the main storyline. This game removes those chains and lets you loose to do whatever, and for the most part, whenever you want to do something. The main goal is to defeat Ganon, as in many Zelda games, but the journey to that goal is entirely up to you. When you first begin, you're located on top of what's called the Great Plateau, and you're unable to leave until certain tasks have been achieved. Once completed, you're free to roam the entirety of Hyrule. If you see a peak on the horizon, you can actually go there. The only boundaries you'll find are the edges of the map, which, by the way, is absolutely huge. At the time of this video, this is the largest Zelda game ever created, and virtually all of it is within your reach. So the main goal is to defeat Ganon, but what's very interesting is that you can go fight him immediately after you exit the Great Plateau. That's right, you can head straight to the castle and test your skills. You'll most likely die, but the fact that you're able to do this just shows how much freedom you have at your fingertips. Now, this doesn't mean the game abandons you completely. It will immediately nudge you in a certain direction once you leave the Great Plateau, but you don't have to go where it tells you. You'll miss certain storyline elements if you don't go, but again, it's entirely up to you. Very early in the game, you'll acquire 4 special runes linked to your Sheikah Slate, a multi-purpose tool you receive while on the Great Plateau. One of the 4 runes is bombs, and instead of just your traditional looking round bombs, you also have cube-shaped bombs at your disposal. These come in handy when you need to place a bomb on a slope so they won't roll down the hill, and the opposite is true for the round ones. Be careful placing a round bomb on a hill, because even the slightest grade in tilt will make the bomb roll, and roll, and roll. The other great thing about bombs is that you can detonate them whenever you want. Another rune is Magnesis. Here, you can use a giant magical magnet to lift and move metal objects, great for removing treasure chests out of the water and creating metallic bridges. Another rune is Stasis. With this power, you can stop time and the movement on many objects and even enemies. If you strike the object while it's stopped, you'll create a buildup of kinetic energy, and once Stasis runs out, the object will blast forward in the corresponding direction, and based on how many times you struck it and with the type of weapon you used, it will travel a certain distance. The 4th rune is Cryonis, which allows you to create up to 3 pillars of ice from any large enough source of water. It's nice that you can climb them, and you don't slip while walking on them. All 4 powers come in handy many times throughout the game. Early on, you'll receive a glider. This is one of the best items in the game because gliding down from a high point is so fun and satisfying, and it's a great way to get from one point to the other. Like in Skyward Sword, Link has a stamina gauge. You'll use up stamina every time you sprint, climb, use a spin attack, or glide. When Link is engaged in battle, if you perform a parry or dodge an attack at just the right time, you can perform your Flurry Rush attack. You can also use this special technique while using your bow in the air. Once performed correctly, time will slow down around you, allowing you to strike multiple times with ease. This technique can save your life, and it's nice that there's no limit on how many times you can use it. Unlike other Zelda games, Link isn't limited to just a few primary weapons. There are many different swords, and clubs, and spears, and even elemental wands. You can find them in chests or as rewards for completing side quests, or even disarming enemies and stealing theirs. If you're holding a 2-handed weapon, you won't be able to shield yourself, but most 2-handed weapons deal more damage per hit than their 1-handed counterparts. I say most because there are high-tier 1-handed weapons out there that can do massive damage, and you won't have to sacrifice your shield to use them. Link's bows and shields also have certain ratings. To add another level of depth to the equipment, each one has a certain amount of integrity before it will break. It's nice that a notification will pop up every time you select a brittle item, and it'll also blink red when it's about to break. Instead of using a melee weapon until its final breath, you can use the last bit of it to throw at enemies for twice the damage. Scattered throughout the world are shrines. Once entered, you'll usually have a test to complete, and most of them have you use one or multiple slate powers. Honestly though, the good majority of shrines are too easy. It would have been nice if they were more complicated. When completed, you'll receive a spirit orb. You can exchange 4 orbs for either a full heart container or a stamina vessel, which will increase your maximum stamina by 1/5 of your base stamina. I appreciated that you got to choose whichever prize you wanted, because I felt that stamina vessels added more utility in the beginning. Because this game world is huge, traversing it can take a long time on foot. You can always use your Sheikah Slate to teleport to any shrine you visited or any tower you've activated, but if you want to take the scenic route, riding a horse is a great option. However, you need to tame one first, as all the horses you can get are wild. And it's not like you can just walk up to one and hop up. Once you get on a horse, you'll need to calm it, which takes up stamina. The higher the tier of the horse, the longer it will take to tame. If you don't have much stamina, it will be very difficult to tame some horses. Once you calm one down, you can take it to any stable you find, where you'll be able to name it, get a bridle and saddle, and the best part is, if your horse is within hearing distance, you can whistle for it and it will come to you, as long as there's nothing in its way of getting to you. Also, if you leave your horse somewhere and are at a stable across the map, they'll still retrieve it for you. As you travel throughout, you'll find many items to collect, such as weapons and equipment, different vegetation and small animals and insects, precious jewels, and even monster parts you can obtain by defeating enemies. Much of what you can collect can be cooked into dishes, or even elixirs. Cooked food can give you more than just hearts. If you cook with the right combination of ingredients, you can create some great dishes that can give you temporary boosts to your attributes, such as increased attack or defense, increased speed, or even more hearts than your maxed amount. Trying different combinations is fun, but be careful, as some items don't mix well with each other, and you can't mix multiple items that would give different attribute bonuses, otherwise you'll end up with a nasty flop, and you'll have wasted those ingredients. When you first start, Link will have on a basic set of clothes, which doesn't offer much protection when in a fight. Throughout the world, you'll find different sets of clothing and armor to offer you better resistance, but most are pretty pricey. You'll need to save up your rupees in order to pay for all of them. Fortunately, you can sell just about anything you can find. Some merchants will give you more rupees than others, but Beetle is usually pretty fair with his prices. This is the first Zelda game to have full voice acting. I'll admit, it was a bit odd to hear some of the characters speak, but I think it works for the most part. Link doesn't speak though, and I think this was the smarter move. The weather can affect your gameplay. If it's raining out, even if it's just a light shower, your wall climbing abilities will be crippled. You'll slide on the wall a lot, and yeah, you'll get frustrated easily. When there's a lightning storm, you can get electrocuted if you have any metallic items out. If you're caught in a fight while there's a storm, you'll have to use non-metallic items to fend off your foes. That was so cool! Harsh temperatures can affect Link as well. Specific foods and elixirs can protect you from extreme cold and heat, but certain sets of clothing can do the same thing. I thought it was so cool how if you're in an environment with extreme heat, any wooden items you have out will start to burn up. Regular arrows will instantly turn into fire arrows, and bomb arrows, well, don't use them here. The graphics are just beautiful. Nintendo stuck with Skyward Sword's style of visuals, but the Switch's HD capabilities makes it even better. Everything is aesthetically pleasing, and some of those sunsets are just breathtaking. The controls work nicely, however it might take you a bit to get used to. The button mapping isn't like traditional Zelda games. I especially like the quick select menus for equipping different weapons and shields. Oh, and if you haven't noticed yet, Link can actually jump on command with the simple press of X. There's so many things to talk about, and most of them are good, however there are some things I wish were different. Even though it's handy to have a quick select menu for equipment, it would have been nice to have the option to drop an item within this menu for convenience, rather than having to open up the full inventory and select an item. This is especially the case when you open a chest, find a weapon you want to keep, but have to put it back in the chest because your inventory is full, open up your inventory, drop a weapon, then reopen the chest and get the item. This happens way more often than you might think. There were 2 gameplay glitches I came across. The frame rate was usually consistent, however there were some areas of slowdown, and enemies, for the most part, had some sense of AI, however sometimes examples like this would happen, which broke up the continuity. For how large the game world is, there aren't that many boss fights. Now that's not a bad thing, as I feel this game is more about exploration and planning your own adventure than have a checklist of what to do next, which includes defeating a handful of bosses. You honestly don't have to fight any of them to complete the game. It's fun though, as one of them in particular, I feel, will really test your mettle. To get to a boss fight, you'll need to overcome this game's versions of dungeons, which aren't dungeons at all. Instead, you'll find yourself within a divine beast, a giant mechanical leviathan. The closest example I can think of is Lord Jabu Jabu in Ocarina. However, there's a new twist, and in some cases a literal twist to these sections. Once you reach a point within every beast, you're able to take some control over it and move sections of it, which changes the map and passageways you're able to use. And this isn't some small feature, the main puzzle is the divine beast itself. The only complaint I had with these is that they aren't that complicated. I know there's limited physical space within each beast, so wishing there was more to explore within each one isn't exactly fair to say. So instead, I'll say that I wish there were more puzzles in each one to make the experience more challenging. I wish I could go on and talk about the long list of elements and features and just awesome things this game has to offer, like the many different biomes, the unique and funny characters, the beautiful music, the gameplay physics themselves, the many hidden treasures and side quests to find and complete. It just goes on and on. The game feels very rewarding when you complete a task, and every time you enter a new area, your level of excitement and wonder resets as you don't know what you might find. Every Zelda game I've played in the past has always given me a certain level of adventurous spirit. However, most had the same overall linear gameplay design, which, don't get me wrong, isn't a bad thing, but I wasn't opposed to the idea of changing the Zelda formula up when Nintendo first talked about this game. And wow, did they ever pull it off! Is this the best Zelda game ever made? Well, that's kind of an unfair question. Since this game doesn't follow the traditional Zelda formula, how can you really compare it? If we're talking about the traditional Zelda games, I think Majora's Mask holds that title, with Wind Waker just barely underneath it. I will say this, when Nintendo decides to create a new Zelda game, they'll have their work cut out for them, as this game sets a new bar. It will be thrilling to see what they can come up with for our favorite unspoken hero, but for now, you shouldn't have any hesitation to picking this game up and having your own wild adventure. This game gets a 4.75 out of 5 with the title of Epic.
I need potatoes.
I got potatoes right here. Somebody do carrots right now.
I got carrots.
I need carrots right now.
I
got the soup. One more order of the soup.
I need carrots right now. It's gonna burn.
Okay, they're right there.
One more order of soup.
One more potato.
I got a potato right here.
Guys, we need more potatoes.
I got potatoes right here.
Go, go, go.
Go, go, go.